Aries 11 to 15. This batch of 5 degrees is called by the name honor. The expression of Aries has evolved, it's emerged, and it's found its drive into the world, and is claiming in the 10th degree a position of rising up, just seeing that things are not the way they were taught to be. The man finding new ways to interpret old symbols, So Aries has actually found its position where, no, I don't like the way things are. I want it differently. I want something new. And this is essential Aries, isn't it? The newness first. Not happy with the way things are. I want things to change. That's Aries. Fire, cardinal fire. I want things to change. I want things to change, and I'm going to do something about it. Cardinal fire. So here in 11, we're seeing the president of a nation. I can see that there's something wrong in my country. I'll show you how to do it right. I'll get on with it. I'll do the necessary. So this requires a huge amount of shift. You can't take on a position like that alone. It's obvious, you're the leader, so you've got all of these people, all of the people that you're in command of, wanting you to do it the way they want it done, and they're all going to disagree, aren't they, about how they want it done. So the position is one that requires a huge amount of self-control, a huge amount of will, and so this quality of the 11th degree of Aries has to do with developing that. Self-control, strong will, I'm the boss, and I'll back it up. I'll back it up with defending my argument, not needing an argument to acting unilaterally. I've decided, therefore it will be. Real power of command, in the sense that I'm going this way, you're just going to have to follow. I've decided what to do, you need to follow suit. It's tremendous, but of course it goes with the price of having criticism all the time. Think about the president of the USA, he's constantly bombarded with criticism, no doubt doing the best he can to follow his own vision or her own vision one day. Nevertheless, half the population don't agree with what you've done. So the ability to withstand that level of criticism, blame, scapegoating, you have to develop quite a robust personality to take a position of leadership, knowing that you'll never please everyone all of the time. It's a difficult job, and Aries is up for it, and takes on the task so fully that it moves into Aries 12, which is like the flock of geese. And they're the symbol of freedom. Now, you notice it's not a single goose, it's a flock of geese. So the freedom that they feel is in some way experienced simultaneously with the freedom that others feel. So it is a group experience. And that seems to be paradoxical, the group experience of freedom. So we have to think about that. And this is interesting for Aries, because Aries doesn't really think in terms of others and groups. Its whole purpose in life is to be self, alone as self, responsible as self, one, I. It's not about groups. And here we have an image of a flock of geese. And I think what we need to understand is that Aries is assertively progressing up the mountain. It's called Mount Kaf in Sufism. It's a symbol, a metaphor for the journey that we take when we're on a spiritual path. And all of the Sabian symbols, the track, the story that we're unfolding with these 360 degrees, that's a story of how to climb up this mountain towards ultimate realization. And here we are at the early stages, shall we say the foothills, knowing that we have to climb mountains, and we've got the energy and the drive to do that. And we come to a position with Aries 11 where taking power because we can isn't quite enough. There's this need to develop a sense of dignity and honor and doing the right thing in order to please, shall we say, or at least avoid the riots of the common masses that you're in control of. And by developing that sense of honor, doing the right thing, nobility of purpose, being a good person, then the flock of geese image, Aries 12. And this indicates the soul, always with a bird. If you're looking at esoteric thinking, always a bird represents the soul. This is true in Sufism and in Western magic. So we have the soul flying. And geese have a very particular way of organizing their flight. We have a leader of the V-shaped, of the geese as they fly in the sky. But that leader doesn't stay there for very long. It leads the group and then moves to the back, and another leader takes over. So you have that sense of temporary absolute leadership, knowing full well that you're going to tire and somebody else is going to carry on, which of course is the case with the president. The president is not a king. The president is the current leader of the flock of geese. Now, if you actually expand the idea of a president to include what comes after and also what went before, you'll actually realize that the president is a team player. And, like the geese, raises the consciousness to the transcendental level. We're talking about soul transcendence here. The understanding of self is never complete until you embrace the concept of soul. And instead of just saying, I have a soul, which is a better thing to do than say, no, there is no such thing, it's a movement forward to say, I have a soul. The highest elevation that you can reach is the opposite, where you say, I am a soul, and I have a personality, I have a body temporally in this lifetime. And when you've got your head into that consciousness, when you think of yourself as soul, here in a body for a moment or two, a blink of an eye, 80 years is nothing to the soul. When you get into that consciousness, you've moved into transcendence of soul. And Aries 12 gives us the first glimpse, really, of realization. Wow, the soul exists and I am it. And therefore, above all of this worldly stuff. And yet, you're in the world, and so you're not really above it. There is a paradox, there is a stretching, almost a frustration where you get that you're a soul, and you're in a physical body with all of these people doing strange things around you and telling lies and cheating and being selfish and all that horrible stuff. It's very difficult for the soul to cope with that. And part of the soul's imperative is to do the right thing, remembering that this expression is about honor, about doing the right thing. And you do that when you tune into soul consciousness. What would the soul do here? I am a soul, so what do I do here? It's doing the right thing. So it's the right thing in terms of following the soul's agenda. We can only infer what the soul's agenda is until we've become realized, but we can understand that it's to do with goodness and truth and love and helpfulness and service and honesty and honor. We can infer that because actually when you read all the scriptures, that's what they say, all of those qualities. And we know that cheating and lying and bullying and violence and all those kind of things are not what the soul does. We know that. Everybody knows that. We don't need to be taught, just reminded. So here is the soul in soul consciousness in a physical body, seeing the nastiness of the world, and it wants to do the right thing. Well, the right thing is to change it so that it's a better place to live down here. This ought to be the Garden of Eden, for goodness sake. Why is it so horrible? And the soul wants to do something about that. And this is Aries, right? Well, I'll just deal with it immediately. And it's a bigger job than that. And this is one of the things about Aries. It's youthfulness. It's being first in life as a baby, in a sense, growing up. It means that it's not the symbol of wisdom. It's a symbol of courage and ardent proclamation of the good in life and so on, zealous qualities, but it's not known for its wisdom. And so when we get to this 13th degree of Aries, it tries to do the right thing in the wrong way, and it plants a bomb. It wants to bring down the corrupt government or bring attention to issues, and it plants a bomb. No, that's not quite right. You know, that's the naive, overzealous activity of someone who hasn't yet developed wisdom. So we have to think about how to interpret Aries 13 in a more mature way. So what we understand is that this attempt to use a bomb to mend what's broken, to fix the world, it's not to be interpreted as terrorists. You know, in the news today, anyone that does something against the government in this kind of way is called a terrorist, not a freedom fighter. Where in fact, what's the difference? These people have got their cause. They think they're right. And here we have Aries that thinks it's right, but setting about doing an activity which is in the name of freedom within his own mind. The soul's freedom of the 12th degree of Aries is the reason for the bomb explosion. But it's perceived as terrorism because it's a bomb and it does peripheral damage, collateral damage, and hurts innocent people. You got a real paradox here. How to resolve this? How do you actually make a difference without damaging the innocent? It's difficult. So we're trying to understand in this 4th degree of the expression of honor, the method by which we achieve that change in the world without causing hurt. Now this 14th degree of Aries is the serpent near the man and the woman. Clearly an indication of Kundalini energy. The serpent always is. It's sexuality. Now, in the highest form of esoteric understanding, sexual energy is just the marriage of the male and the female polarities. It's not sex as such. Sex is an example of it, an expression of it. But sexual energy is better called Kundalini energy. And in the Hindu tradition, they see that as the marriage of Shiva and Shakti. Now, Shiva is God, the highest degree of consciousness in his Shiva expression. And Shakti is goddess, the knowledge of the lower energies as things of beauty. Lower energies are not bad or dark or devilish or evil, as Christians would have you believe. They're simply more earthbound. And because they're more earthbound, and we get into physicality quite a lot, they're more subject to distortion. So the lower energies in your being, your survival instinct, means that you're afraid of lack if it's distorted. Your sexual center is lustful and just goes for the surface pleasure of sex instead of the deeper kind of meaning, the esoteric purpose of it, and so on. And the 3rd chakra relates to distortion of ego. I am important myself, rather than the principle of I-ness, unique identity, is cosmic and spiritual. I am more important than you, and that's the distortion of that one. So these lower energies are certainly more likely to be distorted than the higher spiritual energies. And the symbol of the man and the woman with the snake indicates what the snake should be instead of what it has become. The snake is fallen. The Kundalini energy is the upward movement of Shakti energy towards Shiva, and the downward movement of Shiva energy towards Shakti. The caduceus represents this principle, the two spirals, one going up, one going down, the exchange of electrical energy. It's just electricity, really, divine, cosmic, spiritual electricity, as it applies to us in a physical body. That's what the Kundalini is. And here we have the snake that represents the Kundalini. Typically, the snake in modern Western culture is shown on the horizontal level, on its belly, because it's fallen. In the caduceus, it's not. It's vertical. It's rising up and down. The correct alignment of Kundalini energy is up and down. But when it's blocked in the heart, the snake falls to the ground, and we have this horizontal, earth-based, lustful sexual energy. Now, here we come back to the 14th degree of Aries, and we're saying, look, get that right. Sanctify your sexuality. And that's just an example. Sanctify it all. Because everything is sexual. The essence of life itself is yin and yang. Female, male, masculine, feminine, in dynamic balance. They're balanced and they're dynamic. Now a bit more you, now a bit more me. Now, you get that right. You get into balancing the dynamism of sex, of masculine, feminine, of push and pull, of give and take, of yin and yang. You balance all of that in a dynamic way. In other words, you're not selfish and you're not a doormat. You're sometimes proud and strong and sometimes humble and of service, a different version of proud and strong. And you just work it all out. And you feel the appropriateness of when to be which. So learning the mystery of that dynamic balance made most clear by sanctifying sexuality. This is the 14th degree of Aries. And this, of course, is how honor expresses itself in relationship, especially to someone of the other gender. Now, when you do that, you get into the 15th degree of Aries. This is the Indian weaving the blanket. Now, this blanket is a metaphor. It's an old symbol of the cosmic robe. We're robed in light. That's what it means. So the Indian is clearly in balance, much more closely in balance with nature, a native, understanding the give and take of life. It's how you live if you live with the land. Living close to the land, even though you might be living on camps in the 21st century, when you're close to the land, or a gardener, who's out there all the time, you actually understand the rhythms, you get it. It's just not an intellectual idea. You get it, you feel it, you do that. Well, the native is feeling that. And weaving this robe is a metaphor for interaction, both perception of and creation of a robe of light, a dressing of light. So we can feel ourselves to be, almost see sometimes ourselves to be a body of light. There was a time when I saw this actually on retreat. There's this phrase that we're told, somebody has seen the light. And when I was younger, I always thought there'd be a flash of electricity, a lightning blast, and I'd see the light, and then it would be up there. And I was looking for it in the wrong place. What it means is that you just notice, you just see that this is all light. It looks physical, and so on. It looks substantial, it looks hard. But when you get into this retreat consciousness, this kind of enlightened state of perception, you just get that this is light, and you're light, and everything's light, and it's like, wow, you can see whirls and spirals and shimmering, and it's just light. It's not what it seems. And that enables you to notice that so are you. Your body is not physical really. It looks physical, but it's not. It's just a bunch of energies all sort of, configuring themselves in accordance with your expectations. And around the physical body, the body that appears physical at least, is this person-shaped dressing of light. It's just another layer. You could call it the aura. There are levels of aura, though, 3 different levels for obvious, become obvious. And you just notice that you're wearing this robe of light. And so the Indian weaving the blanket is simply living close to nature and seeing yourself as a being of light. Now, of course, it's energy. It kind of there's no boundaries. It shimmers and it interacts, and you notice that when you're with someone and you get intensely emotional with them, your light body just connects, and you can't say which of you is which. That's a meaningless idea. You bind yourself to somebody, and that's obvious when it's passionate, but it's also obvious when it's just deep and long term, and even if when you're in conflict with somebody, you bind yourself with that person in a conflicted way, but you're still sharing the same light, and you cannot distinguish between where one ends and the other begins. We interact with everyone and the world itself and nature and all of it. We just interact with bits of us that aren't really us. It's just this robe of light is almost like, right, this is me for now until I relate to somebody, and then I'll interact with my robe of light and take on some of them, and they'll take on some of me, and it's just we're all one. We're all localized versions of an ocean of light, a universe of light. And Aries does have the ability, shown in Aries 15, to know that. We spoke earlier of this ability that Aries has to use its intuition to know things that it can't explain. And sometimes you see Aries just appreciating all and everything through the individual. Not I being more important than thou, but just like, wow, I get it, And it has to be an I that gets it. It has to be a focus of attention, or you can't get it. And that's what Aries does. It just gets all and everything as an individual. Unity has become diversified into I.